Hello, welcome to the third practice session. We're just gonna switch things up a little bit and add an audio element to this one. So we thought this could be just more of a raw format where we just kind of chat with you guys about whatever we're currently thinking, whether we're creating something and the direction we're trying to go with that move, or whether we're practicing something. We could talk about what specifically we're focusing on. But yeah, we hope that you guys enjoy this. If you find this format interesting, let us know and we'll keep going with it. So please enjoy. All right, so welcome to the third practice session. So I'm going to be practicing this combo move that I have. There's two different one-handed moves that I do, and I'm trying to do them together well. So in the right hand, I've got, it looks a little something like that. See if I can do maybe a little better. Like so. So that's what I'm generally going for. I would say I'm trying to improve up to this point because there's this sort of hitch that I reach in spinning this packet all the way. So there. So naturally I can spin it to about this point, but I would like to be able to spin it completely all the way there. So I'm working on making that spin a bit more smooth. And then sort of the more difficult part is this wrap around here. So as you can see, that packet does not stay together super clean. So certainly trying to improve that a little bit. So sometimes I can get it pretty clean. And what I try to do is as I practice this, as I practice any move for that matter, when I get a pretty clean performance, I try to think about why was that performance so clean. It's probably a bunch of factors that can contribute to that. So something like packet size, or even just tiny variations with how that packet fits between your fingers. For example, if I'm gripping it at the corners here, perhaps even if this corner was just slightly further back or up or down, that can make a difference in how clean you perform the move. So generally practicing, I try to focus on when I get like that was a pretty decent performance there, and I'll try to think about what specifically made that a good performance. That in general, you'll just smooth things out over time. At least that's how it works for me. Just the more reps you can put in, you'll eventually get it down over time. But I think there's ways to speed that up a little bit. And in general, thinking about those little tiny movements and those little tiny improvements generally helps that at least. So, of course, you're gonna drop cards a bunch. That's all good. And then the other combo that I was working on here. So I got that in the right hand. Both of these I've already put out there. I've already published these, but yeah, well, something like that. So I'd say I'm a little better at this move in general than this one. I'd say this one's just more difficult because of that wraparound. I only have a packet gripped between two fingers here. So, and these fingers are twisting. So if this was a single card, obviously it'd be easier to keep that packet together because it's a single card. But when you are twisting your fingers around each other, it just kind of makes that more difficult to keep that packet together. This one doesn't really have too much like that. Usually the sticky points are keeping that spin kind of clean. And then that used to be a little more difficult, but like I said earlier, with noticing the tiny differences you can make when you practice and tiny finger placements that you can adjust can really make a difference in how smoothly you perform the move. So for example, I used to have my thumb all the way across here. Now I'd bring that down, get to this point, and I would come back up here. And it was very difficult for me to get the leverage to push this all the way over, like so that I could bring my thumb back and strip that card on top there. But what I noticed is that when I would have a good performance sometimes, I had my thumb actually back here. So it also gets this card a little farther down here so you can see it better. Sort of a display, I guess, of sorts, because there's a pause. But when I come back up, with my thumb already being at the base here, it's a lot easier to just push and then get sort of that clean finish. So that was a nice little improvement to make there. And then in general, I've just been thinking about the ways that I can combine these. So if I try to do them together, usually the finish I've been doing is something like that. It's kind of where I'm at. It's a tad lackluster, but I think how I perform that can perhaps make it better. So there's various things to think about when you're doing two one-handed moves at the same time. So, for example, pretty simply is where I have my hands when I perform those moves. It can make a difference. If I do the one-hand combo like this, that's going to be viewed differently than if I did it from here. And it's going to be viewed differently if I do it just from here. And you can think about if you want to emphasize different packets at different points. For example, say I want to emphasize this. So in this hand, I start off, for now at least, I just start off with the charlier just to get into this position. So not very impressive, at least. Trying to think of a better way to get into that. So if I'm doing these at the same time, what I might do is emphasize this a bit more. So emphasize the more interesting part of the combo by just putting that first. So you don't even really notice that I'm just doing a charlier. You might see some motion happening behind. Let's see if I can do it a little better. And then maybe I come forward there. I didn't do the move right there. But maybe at that point, that's a pretty interesting point of the move where I have this sort of slide flip like that. That's a more interesting moment of that. So perhaps I could combine these in the way that interesting moment happens here, that interesting moment happens here, and then this is a relatively interesting moment in this hand too. So perhaps I emphasize both of those, and that movement in my left hand here is happening while I wrap it around here and wrap this packet, kind of close this off, and that ends up in this position. And at least for now, that's kind of the ending that I have there. So different things that I think about and that I suppose anyone can think about when you're doing one-handed combos. For example, if you're doing L cuts, you can do L cuts here. Some people, you can switch your hands. You can emphasize different parts of the L cut at different times. So there's a lot of tiny subtle things you can think about sort of while you're doing that. most of the improvements you make are just going to be just repeatedly doing that move. But like I said, I think it's important to think about those things. So let's see. So as I do this move, there's that hitch that I mentioned earlier, where I want this spin to go completely around initially, but it kind of has two parts to that spin. So let's see why that's happening. I think what I do is, so when I do this spin, so let's not turn my hand. I used to do the spin like this, but I thought it might be a little more interesting if I turn my hand like that. So again, tiny things. Let's see, so without turning my hand, oh, obviously doesn't look as good when you drop the cards. But without turning my hand around, can't even do it right. So clearly turning my hand around wins that competition, since I can actually perform it that way. But when I get to this spin here, so I think what happens here is these two fingers go up to sort of grab this deck, or at least they are pushing this packet up to my thumb here, and that kind of limits the rotation that I get. So I suppose if I could pass this packet up like that. So if I pass the packet up with my index here, but continue the rotation with my middle finger there, perhaps that can get me, that would be interesting too. Perhaps that can get me that full rotation. So let's see. That'll obviously take a bit of time. Might not be able to get that down right now, but let's see. Okay. I think that should help once I get that down. I can even practice it like that. There's times you can practice the move without actually doing the move too. So you can even just practice doing that. That's essentially what I'm trying to do. So spin. Because normally I think I do use my two fingers like that, but I need to just use my middle finger like that, which should leave my index free, kind of like that. That's a little better. All right, so the camera ran out of storage there, so I'll take that as a sign to cut this one short. But if you stuck around at the end, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Hopefully there's something that you got out of this. And yeah, see you guys in the next one. Peace.